Hello and welcome to Sports News on CW57. My name is Ryan Ashker and here are this week's headlines. After an exciting consecutive Final Four run, Wisconsin junior Sam Decker has announced that he will forego his senior season at Wisconsin and enter the 2015 NBA draft. Decker, a lifelong Wisconsinite, originally from Sheboygan, is projected as a first-round talent. The 6'9 junior was a second-team All-Big Ten selection who averaged 13.9 points per game in the regular season and 19.2 points per game in the NCAA tournament. Decker helped lead the Badgers to their first NCAA title game in 74 years. A recent survey by Harris attempted to document interscholastic athletic activity with success later in life. This survey asked over 2,000 participants about their own high school experience and compared those results with their education beyond high school and their career accomplishments beyond that. Harris found that 64% of athletic participants received a higher level of education compared to 45% of non-athletes. The study also found that 15% of athletes have an income over $100,000, while only 9% of non-athletes meet that income goal. The Northwoods League, home to the Madison Mallards, has adopted a new playoff format in preparation for the 2015 season. The new format will increase the number of teams participating in the playoffs from 4 to 8. 2 additional teams will be added from each division to play a single elimination game on the first 2 days of the playoffs. The 2 teams that win both of their single elimination games will move on to the Summer Collegiate World Series, which is a best-of-3 series. The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh announced that they will be dropping 2 athletic programs after the 2015-2016 academic year. The move was made to create a more financially sustainable experience for the rest of the student athletes. It also realigns the university with the WISC and Title IX regulations. Sports that are being affected are men's soccer and men's tennis. The men and women's track and field and cross-country teams will also be restructured. This drops the available athletics at Oshkosh from 21 to 19. The Milwaukee Bucks have unveiled plans for a new $500 million arena as well as an additional $500 million downtown Milwaukee entertainment district intended to get residents to live, work, and play. The stadium is designed to replace the BMO Harris Bradley Center, which was opened in 1988. Construction is scheduled to take up to 2 years with the goal of opening in 2017. If Milwaukee does not break ground on a new stadium by 2017, there is the possibility of the NBA buying back the Bucks from new owners Mark Lasry and Wes Edens. That would be an effort to move the franchise to Seattle. After falling just short of a national championship, Wisconsin senior Frank Kaminsky swept all National Player of the Year honors, including the Wooden Award. Kaminsky beat out runner-up Jahlil Okafor from Duke. The 7-footer finished the season averaging 18.9 points and 8.2 rebounds per game while helping the Badgers to a 36-4 record, the best in school history. Kaminsky is expected to be a first-round selection in the NBA draft and leaves the Badgers as the most decorated athlete in program history. We'll be right back with more of the sports news after this. Welcome back to the sports news. Right now I'm joined by Gary Skiles and Joseph Stupar of Madison La Follette Wrestling. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks for having us.
Joey, want to start with you. Just been wrestling a couple years, you told me, and you had a really successful season last year. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I had 28 wins. I won the Big 8 conference and I was a sectional qualifier.
Fantastic. That's a good year for 3 years in. Good job. Now, Gary, we were talking a little bit before on kind of the history of wrestling in Madison. Can you share with us, a bit of that knowledge that you've acquired, maybe the past on what's gone on with wrestling in the area?
Right. Well, now I haven't been in Madison with wrestling quite as long as I maybe look and so forth. I've been at Madison La Follette High School since 1990. But Madison wrestling has kind of struggled over that time period, but we're in kind of a nice upsurge and there's a lot of good competition. We're getting some more youth wrestling and kids coming up with getting more involved out of the season and doing better in our conference, more participation in the state tournament and so forth. So I'm feeling good about Madison wrestling right now.
And you mentioned that with some of the youth programs and things like that. Is that maybe one of the key contributors to the resurgence of wrestling in the area?
Oh, I think it's huge, and it's still developmental at this point, but we're doing some nice things. We've got some wrestling at the youth level going on through MSCR, and then also a program called Beat the Streets. Former Madison State champion from Madison West, Greg Schrader, is heading up that. And then we've also got our own youth program called the Lancer Youth Wrestling Club. So And it's all contributing, you know. Most of our kids over the years are like Joey and have come up, started as freshmen, but we're getting more and more kids that have come up through the youth ranks now too.
Well, Joey, we mentioned you've been wrestling 3 years now, started as a freshman. What's the reason you kind of went towards wrestling, or what did you find in that made you want to compete in that sport?
It was just a different sport. Never really thought about it before. I had a couple friends that were doing it and just decided to join it, and my first year I liked it. After my second year, that's when I really started to get into the sport, and that's when I started wrestling kind of year round, and that's when I really made gains and got better.
Yeah, and we can tell by your record you've gotten much better than probably when you started, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. That is Gary Skiles and Joey Stupar of Madison La Follette Wrestling. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
We'll be right back with more of the sports news after this. Hello and welcome to Sports News. Right now I am joined by Tara Traylor and Kayla from the La Follette High School girls volleyball team. Ladies, thanks for joining me here today.
Hi. Hi, thanks for having us.
All sophomores, going to be upperclassmen next year, so looking ahead towards next season, ladies, what are some of the team goals you have?
Honestly, just for everyone to give 110% effort, because I feel like if we do that, it'll be a really fun season.
And I actually, as a coach, have pretty high expectations for these girls and as our team as a whole. We've had a lot of girls put in a lot of work in the off season, so I'm expecting major improvements, both from individuals and as our team, and really hoping to shock a few of the teams in the Big 8.
With a lot of those improvements you mentioned, what kind of qualities would make a good volleyball player for the team, or, you know, going from a good player to even being a leader as you girls look to be upperclassmen next year?
A good attitude is definitely one of the biggest things that you need to have, because it rubs off on all of the younger kids that are coming in, especially the freshmen and the JV players that are hoping to be on the varsity team next year.
Well, with that, with athletes moving up, maybe going from JV to varsity, what part of the game do you guys really emphasize, or what part do you look forward to or look to help propel you into the Big 8 next year?
Personally, just being extremely loud and being really scrappy, because we're not always blessed with the tallest players. So when you don't have a big block up, you need to have good defense and just be ready for anything.
Making the most out of what you got as a group. As an upperclassman, which you ladies are going to be next year, as I said, what is your role on the team, or what are some of the things you want to pass down to maybe some of the up-and-comers?
Well, as being especially a captain or an older kid on the team, you just have to really be encouraging, and you have to help answer any questions and just be there for any of the girls that need help or need any questions answered.
Yeah, I'm looking for these two especially to really set an example for the rest of the girls both on the court and off. So, you know, in their communication, the leadership they show on the court, you know, their effort in drills and practice and in games. So really looking for them to set the example.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure we get this in while we still have you on, but tell me a bit about the La Follette Youth Volleyball camps that you have coming up. How can people get involved, and what are those all about?
Yeah, well, we just started. We actually ran some youth clinics this fall and winter, and we're kind of pulling that into the summer. So we're going to have 2-day summer clinics for kids growing into 4th through 8th grade, and as well as incoming freshmen. We're really trying to promote the youth to really get involved in our program and hopefully get some more attendance at our games. So looking forward to that.
Great. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us here on the Sports News today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is Tara Traylor and Kayla, the La Follette High School girls volleyball team. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be right back with more of the sports news after this. Welcome back to the Sports News. Right now, I am joined by Jacob Poches out of Portage Wrestling. Jacob, thanks for joining us here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Here's a question. How long have you been wrestling? We were just talking off air. You said you were a senior. Is this something you just kind of picked up in high school, or does it go farther back than that?
Oh yeah, it goes farther back. I started wrestling when I was in kindergarten, actually, and I started getting into it because my dad, he wrestled in high school, college, all that, and me being a kindergarten, I'm like, I just want to be just like Dad. So I joined wrestling in kindergarten and I've been doing it ever since.
Now, being a senior, do you have aspirations? Would you like to try to wrestle in college, or after high school, is that something you might be done with?
You know, that's something I've gone back and forth about. I haven't quite decided yet, and I'm going to keep thinking about it.
Sure. Well, good luck with your decision either way. And you're a state champion as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
And with that, I saw you had a buzzer takedown in the championship match. What were your thoughts in the closing seconds there? You know, how is this going to play out? What do I need to do to get it done? And then to be able to have that takedown right at the buzzer.
Well, I mean, we went out of bounds, and I knew there was short time. I didn't realize there was only 10 seconds left, but my thoughts were just keep pushing, get that takedown, and, you know, that's the way it worked out.
And with that, how did that feel, you know, knowing you're a state championship after a hard-fought match and a long season? How did it feel to become a state champ?
It felt absolutely amazing. You know, all the hard work I put in throughout the years, it finally paid off, and being a state champ has been a dream of mine ever since I was a little kid, so for that to come true meant everything.
And you mentioned all that hard work you put in. What are some of the things you did to prepare for not only the season, but to become a champion? How did you kind of mentally prepare and physically prepare for that challenge?
Well, the journey for this year started actually last end of May. I went down to Madison 3 times a week, Advanced School of Wrestling, and I stuck with that all through summer, all the lifting, the running. And then season started, and on top of the high school practices, I'd drive down to Madison twice a week for practice. And then we had morning lifting 3 times a week, and then I get extra technique 2 more days out of the week.
Did that ever become a problem for you, balancing schoolwork with, you know, all the wrestling extracurriculars?
For the most part, throughout the whole year, I was able to, you know, I stayed on top of it. And then towards the end of the year, once state was rolling around, I'm like, I got to focus on wrestling. And you know, that's all I thought about, just wrestling. Then it was hard to focus on school.
Has the excitement worn off yet from that championship run?
For the most part, yeah. But every now and then I'll sit down, I'll watch the match, and my hands get all sweaty, and I start like quick moving off to the side. So there's still some excitement there.
Now, looking back on your career, besides the state championship, do you have another favorite memory?
Yeah, actually, my next favorite memory besides winning is actually happened the night before I won state. And we were walking to the session before I wrestled my semifinal match, and we walked past the short stack on State Street, and I'm like, can we go there for breakfast tomorrow? And my coach just goes, only if you win tonight. So I go out, I win the match, I run off the mat, I'm like, we're going to short stack. But it turns out we didn't even go there because it was too busy the next morning. So
oh, you missed out.
So close.
Well, Jake, thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Jake Poches of Portage Wrestling will be right back with Baraboo High School after this. As promised, I'm now joined by Baraboo Track and Field. I have Kevin Catterson and Matt Bruck in here. Guys, thanks for joining us here on the Sports News.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So Kevin, as we're looking at the team this year, what are some of your philosophies with coaching? I know you're working with the throwers this year. Matt is one of your throwers as well as a sprinter. What are some of the things you want to pass down or put on to your student athletes?
We start the season right from the get-go, right from day one, talking about how we want to be successful throwers, but we also want to be successful people. So we have a program set up where we push each other and we help each other and we work on making each other better as throwers, but we make each other better as people. You only throw for 4 years, but you got to be a good person the rest of your life. So that is a very big emphasis for our team and for our throwing program right from the start.
Now, is that something that it's a track and field thing? But I know a lot of athletes from Baraboo, we've covered that. That's a school-wide thing. You guys have trying to make respectable people as well as student athletes, correct?
Yes, it's right from our athletic director on down. He does a great job of pushing our coaches to have that as part of our overall emphasis within our program and within our sports programs in general. And then my own personal philosophy, I take on a whole nother side of that as well to push it even further.
So when we're looking at that, if we go just with the field and not so much the sort of person you want, what are some of the techniques you teach to throwers, or how can you help them excel in that sport?
I was a thrower myself for Baraboo High School. I was born and raised in Baraboo, so was a thrower myself, and I had a very good coach by the name of Gary Frisch when I was throwing. And I've taken a lot of the things that he's done with the throws of the technique that we use, and then have paired that with the latest and greatest, and have taken a lot of stuff from Dave Ostrowskis, he's the UW throws coach. Have taken a lot of things from Joe Frontier of Madison Memorial, Brian Storms of Monona Grove, and just identify who does it really, really well. Who does it the best? Who's the ones that always have state champion throwers, and have taken things from that and then just molded it with the things that I've learned from Gary Frisch and have put it into my own program there.
And Matt, being a thrower and a sprinter, as you were telling me, what made you want to participate in track and field? What drew you to that sport?
I guess a long time ago, one of my sisters, I have an older sister, one of her friends, you know, he got me interested in sports. He told me sports were important. And as I grew up, learned about, you know, sports, tried out different sports, became an athlete, I guess, in many different ways. Sports are important, and it's a great way to be with your friends. It's a great way to, you know, stay out of trouble, obviously. As, you know, we all know, sports keep you busy, very busy, especially, you know, after school, on the weekends, you know, anytime sports, you can always be practicing, bettering yourself. So sports are just important, I guess, is what I would say to, you know, any high school or any athlete. Or
well, we're running out of time, so unfortunately I gotta let you guys go, but thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate the opportunity.
That is Kevin Catterson and Matt Brunk of Baraboo Track and Field. We'll be right back with more of the sports news. Welcome back to the sports news. Right now I am joined by my friends from Ford's Gym. It's James McIntyre and Marcus Johnson. Thanks for joining us here today.
Oh, yeah.
James, what's going on down at Ford's Gym? I heard a lot of happenings. How about you inform some of our viewers what's going on?
Biggest thing we got going on is Saturday, July 11th, 7 p.m. at the Monona Terrace. We got the Boss Hall boxing event in Starring Boss Hall, Marcus Parker, and that's the main event. And then we're also going to have plenty of people on the undercard, including this guy right here, Marcus Johnson, one of my good friends and a very skilled fighter.
And what date was that? I just want to remind everyone.
That's July 11th, Saturday, Monona Terrace, 7 p.m.
All right, I'm going to be getting some tickets from you for that. I want to come out. That sounds good.
I'm going to mark you on that.
Sounds good. Now, Marcus, you came along with us today. Can you tell us a little bit about your history with boxing?
I've been boxing about 4 or 5 years. I started learning when I was 17. I'm 24 now. At first, I was kind of just dabbling around, and then the more fun I had, the more experience I got, I realized it was really for me.
Okay. And we were talking a little bit off the air, and you're a really nice guy, nice young man. Do people ever tell you you're too nice to box, or boxing's a rough sport, why don't you do something else?
Man, all the time, you know, and I think a lot of people have just seen too many movies, you know, so when a lot of people think of fighting, they just see a guy smashing another guy's face for like 20 minutes over and over and over, and that's not realistic at all. It takes a lot of skill, you know, same as much skill as it takes to play basketball or baseball or football or any of that.
And how has boxing affected your life? What have you taken away from the sport?
It's affected me very positively, man. At first, I was always just kind of, you know, I've always liked fighting, especially in high school. It was bad because I always wanted to, like, that's how I solved my problems. Then I started going to the gym, and I just had an outlet. I had a place to put everything that, anytime I had a problem, I had a place to put it. You know, I had a place to get out all my stress, and like, everyone at the gym became my family as well, too. Like, I can talk to those guys pretty much about anything, and I just don't have any problems really at all.
And you mentioned that outlet that you're able to use boxing for. With that, when you're going to the gym, how much work goes into boxing? Or now that you're getting ready for a fight, what's kind of your routine to get ready?
Man, tons and tons of work goes into it, man. Depending on who you are, too, what type of guy you are, your work ethic, you know, you could do anything from running every day, hitting the bag every day, in the gym, sparring, maybe not every day, but like once or twice a week. Just lots of different drills, lots of different weightlifting, and a lot of this stuff goes on pretty much every day, especially if you want to be real serious or take it to the next level. You might, if you're lucky, you might get 1 or 2 days out of the week where you get to rest, and even on those days, you're probably still going for a jog or something.
Understandable. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us here today on the Sports News.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate you for having me.
Marcus, good luck on your upcoming fight. James, as always, thanks for stopping in. Those are my friends from Ford's Gym. Check them out. Fight coming up in just a few weeks. We'll be right back with the Sports News right after this little break. As promised, we are back on the sports news. Right now I'm joined by Bob Jors, Athletic Director at Middleton. Bob, thanks for joining us here today.
No problem. It's great being able to come in and talk about Middleton athletics, and thanks for having me.
And I want to start off with talking about Middleton athletics. You know, you guys are running a lot of sports, very successful as well. How do some of your student athletes, you know, balance sports life on a very successful level as well as homework, maybe jobs, home life, and everything else?
This day and age, it's very tough for a youth to be able to do that because the demands, both athletically, what their coaches want them to do, the youth leagues. It's not like just going out and being able to play like we used to do when we were young. And academic-wise, the standards, the pressures to get into different colleges have increased. I think the coaches play a big part in that. As for balancing and being able to talk with the athletes, see how they're feeling, what they need to do, we've been fortunate to do a pretty good job of it.
And as you mentioned, working with the coaches and the student athletes, Middleton students have had great attitudes and have been positive in the community on and off the field. Is that something that kind of starts at the top with you, trickles down to the coaches and onto the athletes, or what has been the secret to making sure you're making good players on and off the field?
Well, really it does start from the top, and I don't think just from me. It starts from the setting that our Board of Education gives us, what our administration would like our student athletes as well as our student body to be like, me passing it on down to the coaches, but then it's really how the coaches carry it on out. As for our coaches, I think they do a great job at making the experience positive, molding a team that may be a good team into very successful at the state level team. They've pushed the kids as hard as they can to do that, as well as give them times when they need a little off or time to get their studies done. So it's been very positive for us.
And being able to balance all that stuff like we talked about, Middleton did have a very successful winter season. Can you give us some of the highlights of the winter sports season and maybe some things we want to look forward to as we get into spring sports?
Sure. Our boys basketball team had an amazing run this year. We were supposed to be 6th in the conference. They ended up 3rd in the conference. Went to the regional final game. Unfortunately, didn't get past that. Our girls gymnastics team took 5th in the state. Our swim team boys, swimming and diving, took 7th in the state. We had some snow and ski boarders go to state and finish very well as a couple of our wrestlers made it to state also. Our hockey team made it all the way to the sectional final game, lost a close one to Madison Memorial, but really they won conference, had a great season. I think the highlight of the winter season was with our girls basketball program, who took 3rd in the conference, very competitive conference, probably one of the best in the state, and made it to state and lost in an overtime thriller to Divine Savior Holy Name team that had the best player in the state this year, the player of the year, and it took a record performance for her to beat us. So they did an amazing job, and we were really proud of our girls.
Well, congratulations. Sounds like a great winter season. We want to wish you luck on a successful spring sports season as well. Bob, thanks for joining us here on the Sports News today.
No problem. Have me back.
Bob Jors, Athletic Director of Middleton. We want to thank you for tuning into the Sports News. Please tune in all week long, and we'll see you right here.